The champagne tower sparkled under the crystal chandelier as 200 guests laughed and danced in the grand ballroom. I stood near the entrance, clipboard in hand, checking off the final details of what should have been my sister's perfect day. The cake had been served. The first dance was complete. Everything ran like clockwork, just as I had planned for 6 exhausting months. "Nadine, you outdid yourself again," Mrs. Patterson said, squeezing my arm as she passed. "This wedding is absolutely magnificent." I smiled and thanked her, but my mind was already racing through the timeline. In 15 minutes, the DJ would announce the bouquet toss. I needed to check on Bianca first, make sure her makeup was still camera ready. My baby sister only got one wedding day, and I had poured my heart into making it flawless. The bridal suite was on the 2nd floor, away from the noise. I climbed the marble staircase, my heels clicking against each step. The door was slightly ajar, which seemed odd. I had specifically told Bianca to keep it locked so guests would not wander in looking for a bathroom. As I reached for the handle, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. My husband's laugh. That low, intimate chuckle he reserved for private moments. My hand froze on the doorknob. Maybe he was just helping Bianca with something. Maybe she had called him to fix her veil or needed his height to reach something. I pushed the door open, my mind crafting innocent explanations even as my gut twisted with dread. The scene before me shattered 8 years of marriage in a single brutal moment. Trevor had Bianca pressed against the vintage vanity table I had rented specifically for this room. His hands were tangled in her wedding dress, pulling her close as they kissed with a desperation that could only come from people who had done this many times before. Her veil lay crumpled on the floor. His jacket was tossed over a chair. They were so lost in each other that they did not hear the door open. Time seemed to stop. My clipboard clattered to the floor, the sound echoing through the suite like a gunshot. They sprang apart, Bianca's eyes going wide with something between fear and defiance. Trevor's face drained of all color. "Nadine," he stammered, stepping forward with his hands raised. "This is not what you think." A laugh burst from my throat, sharp and humorless. "Really? Because it looks like my husband is making out with my sister in her wedding dress. On her wedding day. At the wedding I spent 6 months planning." Bianca adjusted her dress with shaking hands. "Nadine, please let me explain." "Explain?" I felt something break loose inside me, all the suspicions I had been ignoring for months suddenly crystallizing into certainty. "Explain how long this has been going on? Explain all those times you needed Trevor's help with wedding errands? Explain why my husband's credit card statement shows hotel charges on the same nights you claimed you were too tired to meet me for dinner." Trevor's eyes widened. He had not known I had been checking. "You knew," Bianca whispered. "I suspected. I hoped I was wrong. I prayed I was paranoid. I looked between them, these two people I had loved and trusted more than anyone. But you couldn't even wait until after the ceremony to put your hands on each other." "It just happened," Trevor said weakly. "We didn't mean for it to. Things don't just happen, Trevor. You made choices. You both did. Every single time you lied to me, every time you snuck around behind my back, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended everything was fine." My voice was rising and I did not care. Let them hear my rage. They had earned every word. "Nadine, please keep your voice down," Bianca hissed, glancing toward the door. "There are 200 people downstairs." "Oh, you're worried about appearances now? You're standing here in your wedding dress after kissing my husband, and you're concerned about what people will think." Something fierce and powerful surged through me. For months I had swallowed my doubts, ignored my instincts, bent myself into shapes that might keep my marriage together. No more. I turned and walked to the door, throwing it open wide. The noise from downstairs filtered up, music and conversation and celebration. Celebration of a lie. "Nadine, don't." Trevor grabbed my arm, but I shook him off. I walked to the top of the staircase. My voice carried through the ballroom, cutting through the music and chatter like a blade. "Everyone, I need your attention, please." The DJ lowered the volume. Conversations died. 200 faces turned upward, confusion written across them. My parents stood near the cake table, my father's face already creasing with concern. Jerome, Bianca's groom, was laughing with his groomsmen by the bar, oblivious to the bomb about to detonate his world. "I'm sorry to interrupt the celebration, but there's something everyone needs to know." My voice was steady, clear, each word deliberate. "The bride is currently in the bridal suite with my husband. I just walked in on them together. So this wedding is over. The husband Snatcher needs to leave now." The silence that followed was absolute. Then chaos erupted. Gasps, shouts, the crash of someone dropping a glass. Jerome pushed through the crowd toward the stairs, his face contorted with disbelief. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father looked like someone had struck him. Bianca appeared at the top of the stairs beside me, her face flushed, mascara already running. Nadine, please, you're ruining everything. I turned to face her, this woman who shared my blood but had gutted me from the inside. No, Bianca. You ruined everything. I just made sure everyone knows it. Jerome reached us, his eyes searching Bianca's guilty face. Tell me she's lying. Please tell me my wife is lying. Bianca opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was answer enough. Get out, I said to her quietly. Take off my grandmother's necklace that I loaned you, leave this venue I paid for, and get out of my sight. Trevor tried to approach me again. Nadine, we need to talk privately. We're done talking. We're done with everything. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow. I had not planned to say that, had not even consciously thought it, but the words came out with absolute certainty. I descended the stairs, walking through the silent crowd with my head high. People parted for me like the sea, their faces showing shock, pity, anger, confusion. I did not care. I was done caring what anyone thought. I was done being the peacemaker, the responsible one, the woman who held everything together even when it was killing her. My best friend Monica met me at the bottom of the stairs, her eyes fierce. I'm taking you home. I am home, I said softly, looking around the ballroom I had transformed from an empty space into a fairy tale. This is my venue. My contract. My vision. They need to leave. I turned back to the crowd. The wedding is cancelled. Thank you all for coming, but the evening is over. The staff will see you out. As security began gently ushering confused guests toward the exits, I watched Bianca flee down the stairs and out the side door, Jerome's family shouting questions after her. Trevor stood frozen at the top of the staircase, a man whose world had just collapsed. Let him feel a fraction of what I was feeling. This was only the beginning. 3 months earlier my life had looked completely different. I woke up that Tuesday morning in the house Trevor and I had bought 3 years ago, a beautiful colonial in the suburbs with a garden I actually maintained. The morning sun streamed through the bedroom windows, and I could hear Trevor in the shower, singing off-key like he always did. Morning, babe, he said, kissing my cheek as he emerged wrapped in a towel. Big day today? The Morrison wedding rehearsal, I replied, scrolling through my phone to check my schedule. Then I need to meet with the florist for the Bennett anniversary party. And Bianca wants to look at invitation samples tonight. Trevor paused while buttoning his shirt. Again? You just looked at samples last week. She changed her mind about the font. You know how she is. I laughed, though even then a small voice whispered that Bianca had been unusually demanding lately. She wants everything perfect. Well, she has the best event planner in the state working for free, Trevor said, adjusting his tie in the mirror. She should trust your judgment. I walked over and fixed his collar, something I had done 1,000 times in 8 years of marriage. She's my baby sister. I want her day to be special. Besides, planning her wedding has been good for my portfolio. I'm getting referrals from her friends already. You work too hard, Trevor said, pulling me close. When was the last time we went on a date? Just the two of us. He was right. Between building my event planning business and helping with Bianca's wedding, I had barely seen my own husband. How about Friday? I'll be done with the Morrison wedding by then. It's a date. He kissed me properly this time, and for a moment everything felt solid and real. This was my life. My husband, my career, my family. Everything I had worked for. My phone rang as Trevor headed downstairs for breakfast. Bianca's name flashed on the screen. Hey, what's up? Did you find those invitation samples I texted you about? Bianca's voice was rushed, breathless. The ones with the silver embossing? I have them in my office. Want to meet at noon? Can't. I have a thing. Can Trevor bring them by my apartment tonight? I know he drives right past my place on his way home from work. I hesitated. Something about the request felt off, but I could not identify why. I can drop them off myself after my meeting. You're always so busy though. Trevor said he wouldn't mind helping with wedding stuff. Pause. He mentioned it yesterday when I called him. You called Trevor yesterday? Yeah, just to ask about budget stuff. Since he's good with numbers and everything. You were with a client, and I needed advice about whether we could afford upgraded centerpieces. It made sense. Trevor was a finance manager, and Bianca had always been terrible with money. Still, unease prickled at the back of my neck. Next time call me back later. Trevor doesn't know anything about weddings. Sure. So can he drop off the samples? Fine. I'll leave them on the kitchen counter for him. After we hung up, I stood in the bedroom trying to identify why the conversation bothered me. Trevor and Bianca had always gotten along fine. He was friendly with my whole family. There was no logical reason for concern. I was probably just stressed from juggling too many clients. I pushed the thought away and focused on getting ready for work. By the time I left the house, Trevor was already gone, leaving behind an empty coffee mug and a note that said, "Love you," with a heart drawn next to it. Everything was fine. Everything was normal. The day passed in a blur of fabric swatches, flower arrangements, and client calls. My business, Nadine Simmons Events, had grown from a side hustle 5 years ago to a full-time operation with a small office downtown. I employed 2 part-time assistants and was considering hiring a third. Word of mouth had been incredible, especially among the Black professional community in the city. Women wanted someone who understood their vision, who could translate their dreams into reality while respecting their budget and cultural preferences. The rehearsal went perfectly, I told my assistant Tanya as we packed up that evening. Mrs. Morrison cried when she saw the setup. "The ceremony is going to be beautiful." "You have a gift for this," Tanya said, stacking boxes of supplies. "Speaking of gifts, how's your sister's wedding coming along?" "It's coming. Bianca keeps changing her mind about details, but we'll get there." I checked my phone and saw a text from Trevor, "Dropped off the samples. Bianca says thanks. Home late tonight, emergency meeting with Tokyo office." Another late meeting. Trevor had been working late more often in recent months, video calls with international clients that stretched into the evening. I had been too busy to think much about it, but now that I considered it, the pattern was concerning. Not because I suspected infidelity, but because I worried about his stress levels. I texted back, "Okay. Leftovers in the fridge. Love you." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response came. At home that night, I ate dinner alone in front of the television, watching a home renovation show and thinking about the Morrison wedding. Everything had to go perfectly. My reputation depended on consistently excellent results. I had worked too hard building this business to let anything slip. Trevor came home after 11 looking exhausted. That meeting was brutal. 3 hours of discussing quarterly projections. "You should tell your boss you need better work-life balance," I said, getting up to hug him. He smelled like cologne I did not recognize, something sharper than his usual scent. "When was the last time you were home before 10? "It's the nature of the job, babe. Finance never sleeps." He pulled away and headed for the stairs. "I'm going to shower and crash. Early morning tomorrow too." I watched him go, that same unease from earlier returning. But what could I say? He was working hard to support us, just like I was working hard to grow my business. This was what career-focused couples did. They made sacrifices, gave each other space, trusted that they were both pulling in the same direction. I went to bed an hour later. Trevor was already asleep, turned away from me, his breathing deep and steady. I lay there in the dark, listening to the familiar sounds of our house, and tried to ignore the small voice asking why everything felt slightly wrong when nothing was overtly broken. The next morning I found Bianca's thank you text. "Trevor is such a sweetheart for bringing these by. You're so lucky to have him. Let's meet Sunday to finalize the seating chart." Such a sweetheart. You're so lucky. Normal words from a sister about her brother-in-law. So why did they make my stomach clench? I deleted the text and got ready for work, shoving down the uncomfortable feelings that were starting to multiply in the back of my mind. I had a business to run, a sister's wedding to plan, a life to maintain. I did not have time for paranoia about nothing. But that night when Trevor worked late again, I found myself checking his credit card statement online. Just to ease my mind. Just to prove to myself that I was being ridiculous. Random woman Trevor met at a bar. This was my sister, the person I had protected and supported since she was born. The person whose wedding I was currently bankrupting myself to make perfect. I sat in my office late one night, spread photos across my desk like a murder board, and tried to understand how this had happened. When had it started? How long had they been lying to my face? Had they laughed about me, the oblivious wife too busy with work to notice what was happening in her own marriage? My phone buzzed with a text from Bianca. "Can we move up the dress fitting? I think I'm losing weight from stress, lol." Stress from planning a wedding to a man you actually love, I thought bitterly while sleeping with your sister's husband. The audacity was breathtaking. I texted back, "Sure. I'll call the boutique tomorrow." 2 days later, Patricia delivered the final piece of documentation. A detailed report showing that Trevor had been using our joint credit card and our savings account to fund the affair. Expensive dinners at restaurants he had never taken me to. A necklace from Tiffany's that I had never received. Hotel rooms charged to our account while I thought he was working. We were talking about thousands of dollars over several months. This is enough for any divorce lawyer to build a strong case, Patricia said when she came to my office to present her findings. He's not just been unfaithful, he's been stealing from your joint assets to support the affair. That plays very well in court. How long? I asked, my voice hollow. How long have they been doing this? Based on the evidence, I'd say at least 4 months. Maybe longer, but I can only confirm the last 4 months definitively. 4 months. A third of a year. While I had been working 12-hour days to build my business and plan Bianca's wedding, they had been building a relationship behind my back. Every family dinner, every wedding planning session, every time Trevor kissed me goodbye had been a lie. What would you do? I asked Patricia suddenly. If you were me? She considered the question carefully. Personally? I'd wait until the moment of maximum impact. Make sure everyone knows what they did. But that's a personal choice. Some people prefer to handle things quietly. Maximum impact. The phrase echoed in my mind as I looked at the photos again. Bianca's wedding was in 6 weeks. The invitations had been sent. The deposits were paid. 200 people were planning to celebrate her happiness. An idea began forming, cold and precise. They wanted a wedding? I would give them a wedding they would never forget. Keep investigating, I told Patricia. I need everything documented right up until the wedding day. Can you do that? Absolutely. What are you planning? I'm going to let them think they got away with it. And then I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth. I felt something harden inside me, a determination I had never experienced before. They destroyed my life in secret. I'm going to destroy their reputations in public. That night, I met with Gloria Richardson, the divorce attorney Patricia had recommended. Gloria was a black woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her office walls were covered with certificates and awards, including top family law attorney for 3 consecutive years. Tell me everything, Gloria said, notepad ready. I gave her all the details, the 8-year marriage, the joint assets, the business I had built largely on my own, the evidence Patricia had gathered. Gloria listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. You have an excellent case for both adultery and financial infidelity. The fact that he used joint funds for the affair strengthens your position significantly. You'll keep your business since it predates the marriage in its current form. The house could go either way, but given his conduct, we can argue for you to retain it. And the misappropriated funds, he'll have to repay those. How much are we talking about? Gloria flipped through the financial documents I had provided. Conservatively? About $15,000 he spent on the affair. We can make him repay that, plus push for substantial alimony given his higher income and misconduct. $15,000. The number made me physically ill. That was money we could have used for vacations, home improvements, savings for the future we had talked about having. Instead, he had spent it on hotels and gifts for my sister. I want to file for divorce the day after the wedding, I said. Gloria raised an eyebrow. The day after? Why not now? Because I want everyone to know what they did. I want there to be witnesses. And I want them to have no idea it's coming. I met her gaze steadily. Can you have papers ready to serve him that day? I can. But Nadine, I have to ask, are you sure about this approach? Public confrontations can backfire. They can make you look vindictive rather than sympathetic. I don't care about looking sympathetic. I care about the truth being known. My voice was hard, unfamiliar to my own ears. They humiliated me in private for months. It's only fair they face consequences in public. Gloria studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, we'll do it your way. But be prepared for fallout. Your family, your friends, your business connections. Everyone will know your personal business. They're going to know anyway once we divorce. At least this way they'll know who to blame. Over the next 4 weeks, I lived a double life with skills I never knew I possessed. During the day, I was devoted Sister Nadine, finalizing every detail of Bianca's wedding with exhaustive care. I went to her final dress fitting and told her she looked beautiful. I confirmed the flower order, triple-checked the seating chart, personally inspected the venue space. I was so attentive, so involved, that Bianca actually complained I was being overbearing. I know you want everything perfect, but you need to relax, she said one afternoon as we reviewed the timeline. It's just a wedding. Just a wedding. While she planned to marry Jerome, she was sleeping with my husband. The cognitive dissonance must have been incredible. Or maybe she had compartmentalized it so completely that she genuinely did not see the problem. Maybe in her mind she could have both. A respectable marriage to Jerome and a passionate affair with Trevor. Maybe she thought she could keep both men dancing on strings forever. She had no idea those strings were about to be cut. In the evenings, I met with Gloria to refine our legal strategy. She filed preliminary paperwork but would not submit to the court until I gave the word. Patricia continued surveillance, documenting every secret meeting, every lie Trevor told me about working late when he was actually at Bianca's apartment. And at night, I lay beside my husband and said nothing. Trevor seemed relieved that I had stopped asking questions about his schedule. He probably thought he had successfully deceived me, that I was too naive or too busy to notice his betrayal. Let him think that. Let them both think they had won. The night before the wedding, Trevor pulled me close in bed. "You've done an amazing job with this wedding. Bianca's lucky to have you." The irony was so thick I almost laughed. Instead I said, "Family takes care of family." "They really do," he murmured, already half asleep. "Tomorrow," I thought. "Tomorrow you'll learn what that really means." The morning of Bianca's wedding arrived with perfect weather. Clear skies, temperature in the mid-70s, gentle breeze. The kind of day event planners dream about. I woke up at 5 in the morning, Trevor still snoring beside me, and went through my mental checklist one final time. Everything was ready. The venue decorations would be installed by noon. The caterers would arrive at 2. The DJ, photographer, and videographer were all confirmed. The wedding party was scheduled for hair and makeup at 11. The ceremony would begin at 4, followed by a cocktail hour and reception. 200 guests, 6 hours of celebration, and one calculated revelation that would bring it all crashing down. My hands were steady as I showered and dressed. No trembling, no tears, no second thoughts. I had cried myself empty over the past month, processing the betrayal in private so I could be strong in public. Today was not about sadness. Today was about justice. "You're up early," Trevor said, emerging from the bedroom in his pajamas. "Nervous about the wedding?" "Just want to make sure everything goes smoothly." I poured him coffee, playing the role of loving wife one last time. "It's Bianca's big day. You're a good sister. The best." He kissed my cheek and I felt nothing. No love, no anger, no pain. Just cold determination. "She doesn't deserve you." "You're absolutely right about that," I said, the double meaning sailing over his head. Trevor left for the gym while I headed to the venue. The Grand Pavilion was a stunning space with floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, and a crystal chandelier that cost more to rent than most people's monthly mortgage. I had used every connection I had to book it on short notice when Bianca had changed her mind about the original location. The irony of bankrupting myself for her special day was not lost on me. My assistants Tanya and Jennifer were already there, directing the decorating crew. White roses and orchids everywhere, exactly as Bianca had requested. Gold accents on the tables. Silk drapes creating intimate spaces within the larger ballroom. It was beautiful, elegant, expensive. "This is going to be the most talked about wedding of the year," Tanya said, stepping back to admire the entrance archway. "Oh, it absolutely will be," I agreed, thinking of reasons she could not imagine. By noon, the venue was transformed. I walked through the space making tiny adjustments. A flower moved an inch to the left, a tablecloth smoothed, a place card repositioned. Perfection in every detail. Let no one say I had sabotaged this wedding through negligence. When it fell apart, it would be entirely due to the choices Bianca and Trevor had made. I checked my phone and saw the messages I had been expecting. Patricia had texted, "Subject arrived at bride's apartment at 9:47 a.m. Stayed until 10:52 a.m. Got photos and video." Subject. She meant Trevor, who had supposedly gone to the gym. Instead, he had gone to Bianca's apartment for one last pre-wedding encounter with his mistress. The audacity was almost impressive. Today of all days, when there was maximum risk of being caught, they still could not keep their hands off each other. I forwarded the message to Gloria with a brief note. "Final evidence attached. Proceed as planned." Her response was immediate. "Papers ready. Server will be on standby at venue. Give the signal and he'll deliver." Everything was in place. I had choreographed this day as carefully as any event I had ever planned, except this time the surprise was not a video montage or a special performance. It was the truth. At 1 o'clock, I headed to the bridal suite where Bianca was getting ready with her bridesmaids. She sat in front of a mirror while a makeup artist applied her foundation, laughing at something one of her friends had said. She looked radiant, excited, completely unaware that her life was about to implode. "Nadine." She jumped up and hugged me. "It's finally happening. I'm so nervous I could throw up." "You look beautiful," I said and meant it. She did look beautiful, glowing with happiness that was built on lies and betrayal. How are you feeling? Honestly? Relieved. Planning this wedding has been so stressful. I'll be glad when it's over and life can go back to normal. Normal. As if she had a normal life to return to. As if she was not sleeping with her sister's husband while preparing to marry another man. The delusion was staggering. Where's Jerome? I asked, knowing the groom was supposed to be getting ready in a separate suite downstairs. With his groomsmen. Poor guy is probably freaking out. Bianca laughed and returned to her makeup chair. Trevor texted me that he's running late but he'll be here soon. Did he? My voice betrayed nothing. That's good. He's been so helpful with everything. I don't know what I would have done without him. She met my eyes in the mirror. You're lucky to have such a supportive husband. The makeup artist paused, sensing something in the air. I smiled and changed the subject. Let me check on the flowers. I'll be back in an hour to help you into your dress. I left the suite and stood in the hallway, allowing myself one moment of pure rage. She had actually thanked me for having Trevor while actively sleeping with him. The psychology of it was fascinating and horrifying. Did she genuinely not see the cognitive dissonance? Or was she so deep in justification that she had convinced herself this was normal, acceptable, just how things were? My phone buzzed. Patricia again. Subject arrived at venue. Currently in men's restroom adjusting appearance. Recommend you position yourself near bridal suite entrance between 3:30 and 4 p.m. That's when they typically find opportunities to be alone based on pattern analysis. 3:30 to 4 p.m. The ceremony was at 4. That meant they would try to steal a few minutes together right before Bianca was supposed to walk down the aisle and marry Jerome. The calculation in that timing, waiting until the last possible moment when everyone else would be seated and distracted, showed planning, deliberation, choice. Good. The more premeditated their actions, the worse they would look when exposed. I spent the next 2 hours in constant motion, checking vendor arrivals, greeting early guests, solving small problems as they arose. A missing boutonniere. A dietary restriction the caterers had not been informed about. A family member who needed special seating accommodations. These were the fires I put out professionally, efficiently, keeping the machine running smoothly toward its inevitable conclusion. Trevor found me near the cocktail area at 3 o'clock. He wore his best suit, hair perfectly styled, looking handsome and guilty in equal measure. If I had not known the truth, I might have felt lucky to have him as my husband. Now I just felt disgusted. Everything looks incredible, he said, attempting to kiss me. I turned my head so it landed on my cheek. Thank you. Where were you this morning? I tried calling but it went to voicemail. Phone died at the gym. Sorry about that. The lie came easily to him, smooth as silk. Do you need help with anything? Everything's handled. You should go check on Jerome. Keep him calm. Will do. He squeezed my hand. Love you. I watched him walk away and wondered if he had any idea this was the last time he would touch me as my husband. Probably not. He had gotten away with it for months. Why would today be any different? At 3:25 p.m., I positioned myself at the end of the second-floor hallway, partially hidden behind a pillar with a clear view of the bridal suite door. Guests were beginning to take their seats downstairs. The string quartet started playing. Everything was proceeding perfectly according to schedule. At 3:37 p.m., the bridal suite door opened. Bianca peered out, looking both ways down the hallway. She was in her full wedding dress now, veil attached, bouquet in hand. She looked like a princess from a fairy tale, which made what she was about to do even more grotesque. She pulled out her phone and typed something. 30 seconds later, Trevor appeared at the top of the stairs. He looked around nervously, then hurried toward the bridal suite. Bianca pulled him inside and closed the door. I gave them 2 minutes. Let them get comfortable, let them think they were safe. Then I pulled out my phone and texted Patricia, entering now. I walked down the hallway, my heels clicking on the marble floor, and opened the bridal suite door without knocking. The chaos that followed the public confrontation was unlike anything I had ever experienced. 200 people simultaneously processing shock, confusion, and scandal created a sound like a wave crashing. Voices rose in every direction. Jerome's family shouted questions at Bianca as she ran out the side exit. My parents stood frozen near the cake table, my mother's hand over her mouth, my father's face turning dangerous shades of red. I descended the stairs with as much dignity as I could gather, Monica beside me, her hand gripping my elbow like she was afraid I might collapse. But I felt oddly strong. Lighter even. The secret I had been carrying for a month was finally out, and the truth sat like armor around me. Nadine, wait. My mother pushed through the crowd, tears streaming down her face. What is happening? This can't be real. It's very real, Mom. I walked in on them together. Just now in the bridal suite. But Trevor and Bianca? She seemed unable to form a complete sentence. They wouldn't. They did. They have been for months. I kept my voice steady, matter of fact. I hired a private investigator. I have evidence. Photos, videos, financial records. Everything. My father reached us, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles working. Where is she? Where is your sister? I don't know and I don't care. The words came out harsher than I intended, but I meant them. She made her choices. Trevor made his choices. Now they get to live with the consequences. This is my fault, my mother sobbed. I should have seen it. I should have known. This is not your fault. It's theirs. Only theirs. I hugged her briefly, feeling her shake against me. I need to go. Monica's taking me home. What about the wedding? The guests? My mother looked around frantically at the emptying ballroom. There is no wedding. It's over. The venue staff will handle cleanup. I've already informed them. I had actually sent that text while standing at the top of the stairs, multitasking even in my moment of destruction. Trevor appeared at the bottom of the staircase looking wild-eyed. He tried to approach me, but my brother Cameron materialized from somewhere in the crowd and blocked his path. Do not come near my sister, Cameron said, his voice low and dangerous. At 6'3" and built like the college linebacker he used to be, my brother made an imposing barrier. Cameron, please, I need to talk to Nadine. I need to explain. Explain what? That you were in the bridal suite with your wife's sister 30 minutes before she was supposed to get married? Cameron's laugh was without humor. Get out of here before I forget we're in public. A woman in an elegant blue dress approached me, Patricia Holmes, though she had been posing as a guest. She handed me a manila envelope discreetly. Divorce papers. Your attorney asked me to deliver them since I was already here. Save you a separate trip. I took the envelope, feeling the weight of it. The end of 8 years of marriage reduced to legal documents. Thank you for everything. You're going to be fine, Patricia said quietly. I've seen a lot of people go through this. The ones who plan, who stay smart and strong. They always come out better on the other side. Trevor broke away from Cameron and grabbed my arm, desperation written across his face. Nadine, please just listen to me for 1 minute. I shook him off and handed him the envelope. You're served. My attorney will contact you tomorrow to discuss proceedings. Do not come to the house. Do not call me. All communication goes through lawyers from this point forward. You planned this. Realization dawned in his eyes, horror and anger mixing together. You knew. You've known and you let me think everything was fine. You let the wedding happen just so you could. Just so I could what? Expose the truth? Make sure everyone knew what you both did. I met his gaze without flinching. You're right. I planned this. I knew for a month. And yes, I waited until today specifically so 200 people would witness what happens when you betray someone who loved you. That's vindictive. That's cruel. No, Trevor. What's cruel is sleeping with your wife's sister for months while she plans that sister's wedding. What's cruel is stealing money from your joint account to pay for hotel rooms and gifts for your mistress. What's cruel is looking me in the eye every day and lying. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. I gave you the same courtesy you gave me. Absolutely none. Jerome appeared then, pushing through the remaining crowd. His parents were with him, all three looking gutted. Where is she? Where's Bianca? She left, someone in the crowd called out. Saw her get in a cab. Jerome turned to me and the pain in his eyes was so raw I almost looked away. How long? How long has this been going on? At least 4 months. Maybe longer. I'm sorry, Jerome. You deserved better than this. Did you know before today? I could have lied to spare him additional pain, but he deserved the truth. I suspected about a month ago. I hired a private investigator and confirmed it. I waited until today because I wanted everyone to know what they did. I wanted witnesses. He absorbed this information with visible effort. You used my wedding as a stage for revenge. I used her wedding, I corrected gently. My sister chose to have an affair with my husband while planning to marry you. I just made sure she faced consequences for that choice. I'm genuinely sorry you got hurt in the process. That was never my intention. Jerome's mother put a hand on his shoulder. Let's go, honey. You don't need to be here. As they left, I heard her saying, we'll get the deposit back from the venue. We'll figure out the legal issues with the marriage license. You're going to be okay. I hoped he would be. Jerome was a good man who had gotten caught in someone else's selfish game. But right now I had my own escape to manage. Monica guided me through the remaining crowd and out to her car. As we drove away from the venue, I saw emergency vehicles approaching. Someone must have called for medical support, probably for one of the older guests who had been shocked by the scandal. The whole scene looked surreal in the rearview mirror, like watching a movie about someone else's life. "Where do you want to go?" Monica asked, glancing at me with concern. "Your house." "My place? We could get a hotel." "Your place?" I said immediately. "I'm not ready to go home yet. Everything there reminds me of him." "You can stay as long as you need. Days, weeks, months. Whatever it takes." At Monica's apartment, I finally allowed myself to feel the weight of what had happened. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation drained away, leaving exhaustion behind. I collapsed on her couch still in my professional outfit, and the tears came at last. Monica sat beside me, not trying to fix anything, just being present. When I could finally speak, I said, "I loved him. I loved her. I would have done anything for both of them." "I know. How could they do this? How could they look at me every day and lie?" "Because people are capable of tremendous selfishness when they want something badly enough." Monica handed me tissues. "But you know what? You're going to survive this. You're going to come out stronger. Because you didn't just catch them, you strategically planned your response. That takes incredible strength." She was right, but it did not ease the pain. Knowledge that I would eventually heal did not change the fact that right now I was shattered. My phone would not stop buzzing. Text messages and calls flooded in from family, friends, clients who had heard what happened through the social network grapevine. I turned it off without reading most of them. I would deal with the fallout tomorrow. Tonight I just needed to breathe. Monica ordered food I could not eat and turned on a movie I did not watch. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me under and I fell asleep on her couch, still in my clothes, the envelope of divorce papers on the coffee table like a memorial to everything I had lost. I woke up the next morning to missed calls from my parents, my brother, Gloria the attorney, and several blocked numbers that were probably Trevor trying to get through. I ignored all of them except Gloria. "How are you holding up?" she asked when I called back. "I've been better." "What happens next?" "Next we file the papers officially. Given what happened yesterday, I doubt Trevor will contest the divorce. He knows he has no leg to stand on. We'll push hard on the financial infidelity aspect and the adultery. You should see a favorable settlement." "How long will it take?" "Best case scenario? 3 to 4 months if everything is uncontested. Could be longer if he fights us on any aspects, but I don't see that happening. His reputation is destroyed. Fighting this in court would only make it worse. 3 to 4 months. I could survive 3 to 4 months. What about Bianca?" I asked. "Can I do anything legally about her part in this?" "You can't sue her for alienation of affection. New York doesn't recognize that anymore. But if it comes out that she encouraged Trevor to misuse marital funds, we could potentially involve her in the financial claims. That's more complicated though. Forget it. I just want her out of my life. Completely. Forever." "Understood. I'll draft a clear cease and desist letter indicating she's not to contact you. If she violates it, we can pursue harassment charges." After hanging up with Gloria, I finally checked my messages. My mother had called 6 times, each voicemail more desperate than the last. My father sent a text that simply said, "Call me when you're ready. I love you." Cameron texted, "I'm here whenever you need me. That piece of trash won't come near you again." There were messages from Bianca too, sent late last night. "Nadine, please let me explain. I know you hate me, but please just listen. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. You don't understand how complicated this is. You ruined my wedding. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You're so selfish." The progression from begging to blame shifting was almost clinical in its predictability. She had gone from seeking forgiveness to attacking me in the space of a few hours. That told me everything I needed to know about whether she actually felt remorse. I blocked her number without responding. Trevor's messages followed a similar pattern. "We need to talk. You can't just cut me off like this. I deserve a chance to explain. This isn't all my fault. You were always working. What did you expect? I'll fight you on the divorce if you don't respond." I forwarded these to Gloria with a note, "Please handle." Then I blocked his number too. The silence that followed was strange and peaceful. For the first time in months, I did not have to worry about who was calling, what lies I would hear, or what evidence I needed to gather. The worst had happened. The truth was out. Now I could focus on rebuilding. Monica emerged from her bedroom around noon, took one look at me and said, "You need a shower and real food." In that order. She was right. I borrowed her clothes and stood under hot water until my skin turned red, washing away the previous day like I could cleanse myself of the whole experience. When I emerged, Monica had made eggs and toast, and we ate in comfortable silence. "What do you want to do today?" she asked eventually. "I need to go back to the house. Get my things. I can't live there anymore." "I'll come with you. We'll take Cameron too." Show of force in case Trevor's there. But when we arrived at the house that afternoon with my brother in tow, Trevor's car was gone. A note on the kitchen counter said, "Staying at a friend's place. Take whatever you need." Whatever I needed. As if this was about furniture and clothes, not the complete destruction of my life as I knew it. But I moved through the house methodically, packing my essentials: clothing, important documents, my laptop, photos from before Trevor entered my life. I left our wedding pictures on the wall. Let him deal with those. It took 3 trips to move everything I wanted to Monica's apartment. By early evening, I stood in the empty house one last time, looking at 8 years of shared history. The couch we bought together. The kitchen we remodeled. The bedroom where we used to talk about future children. All of it felt like artifacts from someone else's life. I locked the door and drove away without looking back. The divorce proceedings moved faster than expected. Trevor signed the papers without contest 2 weeks after the wedding disaster, probably hoping speed would somehow minimize the damage to his reputation. It did not work. Word had spread through our entire social circle and he had become a pariah. I met with Gloria weekly to review the settlement negotiations. We sat in her office, surrounded by case files and legal precedents, building an airtight claim for everything I deserved. "He's offered to split the house 50-50, Gloria said, reviewing the latest proposal from Trevor's attorney. "Which is generous of him considering he tanked the marriage through infidelity. I don't want to split it. I want it all." Gloria looked up from her papers. "That's aggressive, but potentially achievable given the circumstances. You'd need to refinance to buy out his half. Can you afford that?" I had already done the math. My business has been growing. I can take a loan against future contracts. Besides, why should I give him anything? He used our money for his affair. That's the argument we'll make. Let me counter with a demand for full ownership. She made a note on her legal pad. What about the funds he misappropriated? We've documented just over $15,000 in clearly affair-related expenses. I want every penny back, plus damages for emotional distress. Emotional distress is harder to quantify and prove. We can try, but it might drag out the process. Gloria leaned back in her chair, studying me. "You seem very focused on maximizing what you get from this. Is it about the money or is it about making him pay?" "Both. I earned that money. I built my business while he was supposed to be building our marriage. Instead, he was stealing from our joint account to wine and dine my sister." The anger that I had been carefully controlling flared up. "He doesn't deserve a penny of what we built together." "Fair enough. Here's what I recommend. We push hard on everything. Full house ownership, repayment of all misappropriated funds, substantial alimony based on his higher income and the marriage length. His attorney will negotiate down, but if we start high, we'll end up in a better position." Over the next month, the legal back and forth consumed hours of my time. Depositions, document reviews, financial disclosures. Trevor's attorney tried to paint him as a man who made a mistake but still deserved fair treatment. Gloria demolished that narrative with meticulous evidence of premeditation and financial fraud. "Your client did not make a mistake," Gloria said during one particularly heated mediation session, her voice sharp as a scalpel. "He conducted a calculated affair over several months, specifically targeting his wife's sister, while systematically stealing from marital assets to fund that affair. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern of deliberate misconduct." Trevor sat across the table looking pale and defeated. I felt nothing as I watched him squirm. The man I had loved was gone, if he had ever really existed. This stranger wearing Trevor's face meant nothing to me anymore. His attorney tried one last angle. "My client is willing to agree to everything if Mrs. Simmons will sign a non-disclosure agreement preventing her from discussing the circumstances of the divorce." I laughed out loud. "Absolutely not. I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen to protect his reputation. The offer includes an additional $20,000. I don't care if it's $1 million. Everyone already knows what he did. The NDA is pointless." Gloria smiled slightly. "My client has made her position clear. Either accept our terms or we'll see you in court, where these details will become public record anyway. Your choice." Trevor's attorney conferred with him in whispers. Finally, Trevor nodded, looking broken. We accept your terms. 2 months after the wedding disaster, I sat in Gloria's office signing the final divorce decree. Trevor got minimal assets. His car, his personal belongings, and his 401k. I got the house, full repayment of the $15,000 he had stolen, and monthly alimony for the next 3 years. My business remained entirely mine. How do you feel? Gloria asked as I signed the last page. Free, I said and meant it. The financial settlement was satisfying, but the true victory was reclaiming my life. What happens now? Now the decree gets filed with the court, and in 30 days it becomes official. You'll be legally divorced and can move forward with your life. Gloria handed me copies of everything. You handled this remarkably well, Nadine. Most people fall apart during divorce proceedings. You stayed strategic and focused. I learned from the best. I gathered my documents. Thank you for everything. One more thing. Gloria pulled out a business card and slid it across the desk. That's my therapist. You've been through a massive trauma. You've handled the legal aspects brilliantly, but don't neglect the emotional healing. Please consider talking to someone. I took the card, though part of me resisted the idea. Therapy felt like admitting weakness, like saying I could not handle things on my own. But Gloria's expression was serious. I'm not suggesting you can't cope, she said, reading my hesitation. I'm suggesting that processing trauma with professional help will make you stronger, not weaker. Trust me on this. I promised to consider it, then drove to Monica's apartment where I had been living for the past 2 months. She was at work, so I had the place to myself. I stood in her living room holding my divorce papers, trying to feel something significant. This was supposed to be a major life moment, the official end of my marriage. But instead of grief or relief or anger, I just felt tired. I called my mother, who had been walking on eggshells around me since the wedding. It's done. The divorce is final in 30 days. Oh honey, are you okay? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. I got everything I asked for. I'm not asking about the money. I'm asking about you. Your heart. Her question broke through my carefully maintained composure. My heart is broken, Mom. But it's healing. Every day it heals a little more. Do you want me to come over? I can leave work early. No, I'm okay. I just wanted to let you know. I hesitated, then asked the question that had been gnawing at me. Have you heard from Bianca? Silence on the other end. Then, she called last week. Asked if I would talk to you about forgiving her. What did you tell her? I told her that forgiveness is not something anyone can demand or negotiate. It's something you give if and when you're ready, and she has to accept that she may never receive it. My mother's voice was steady, no longer the apologetic tone she had used in the weeks after the wedding. Your father and I have decided not to maintain a relationship with her until she demonstrates genuine accountability for what she did. This surprised me. My parents had always been softer on Bianca, the baby of the family. You cut her off? We set boundaries. There's a difference. She's still our daughter, but we can't condone her actions by treating everything as normal. She betrayed you in the worst possible way. That matters to us. I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot I had not realized was there. Thank you. You don't need to thank us for basic decency. We should have been more observant. We should have seen the signs. No one saw the signs because they were good at hiding them. That's not your fault. After we hung up, I sat on Monica's couch and thought about Bianca. My sister, who had shared my childhood, who I had protected from bullies in middle school, who I had helped through her first heartbreak. Did she think about those things when she was with Trevor? Did any sense of loyalty or shame ever cross her mind? I would probably never know. And maybe that was okay. Not every question needed an answer. That evening, Monica came home with takeout and champagne. We're celebrating your freedom. It's not official for 30 more days. Technicalities. The hard part is over. She poured 2 glasses and raised hers. To Nadine Simmons, survivor and badass. We clinked glasses and drank. The champagne tasted like possibility, like the beginning of something new, even though I could not yet see what that something was. What are you going to do now? Monica asked. I don't know. Focus on my business, I guess. Figure out who I am without being someone's wife. You're going to be amazing at that. You've always been amazing. I wished I had her confidence. Right now, I felt like a stranger to myself. The woman who had planned that confrontation with such cold precision, was that really me? The woman who had watched her husband and sister's world implode without flinching, was that who I wanted to be? I think I might start therapy, I said suddenly. Gloria recommended someone. Monica's face lit up. That's a great idea. Seriously, Nadine, that's really healthy. I've been in therapy for years. It helps. I don't want to become bitter. I don't want what they did to poison me from the inside out. Then don't let it. You get to choose who you become after this. They took a lot from you, but they don't get to take your future too. She made it sound so simple. Maybe it was. Maybe healing was just a series of small choices, day after day, to move forward instead of staying trapped in the past. That night, I made an appointment with the therapist Gloria had recommended. Dr. Hannah Scott, specializing in trauma and relationship recovery. My first session was scheduled for the following week. I also made another decision. It was time to move out of Monica's apartment and find my own place. Living with my best friend had been a lifeline when I needed it, but I could not hide in her spare room forever. I needed my own space, my own life, my own four walls that held only my history. The next day I returned to the house I had shared with Trevor. The divorce settlement had given me full ownership, which meant he was required to vacate within 30 days. According to his attorney, he had already moved out, taking only what was legally his. I had not been back since that first day when I had packed my essentials. Now I walked through rooms that felt both familiar and foreign. He had removed his belongings, leaving gaps on bookshelves and empty spots on walls. The living room looked unbalanced without his ugly leather recliner that I had tolerated because he loved it. The bedroom closet had space where his suits used to hang. It should have felt like a victory reclaiming this space. Instead, it felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with missing furniture. I hired a cleaning crew and a decorator. Over the next 2 weeks, we transformed the house. New paint colors, new curtains, new furniture arrangements. I removed every trace of Trevor and our life together, boxing up photos and mementos to store in the attic. Not because I wanted to preserve them, but because destroying them felt too emotional, too raw. Someday I might be ready to throw them away. Not yet. When the work was finished, I stood in my completely renovated living room and felt something click into place. This was mine. Not ours. Mine. Every choice in this space reflected only my taste, my preferences, my vision. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe fully. I moved back in on a sunny afternoon in late October, 3 months after the wedding disaster. Monica helped me unpack the boxes I had been storing at her place. "This looks amazing," she said, looking around the transformed space. Completely different vibe. That was the goal. Fresh start. "How are you feeling about living alone? You've been with Trevor for 8 years, then with me for 3 months. This is the first time you've been really alone." The question made me pause. Honestly, a little scared, but also excited. I get to figure out who Nadine is when no one else is watching. "You're going to love her," Monica said confidently. "I already do." That night, my first night alone in my reclaimed house, I cooked dinner for myself and ate at the kitchen island. No compromise on what to watch on TV. No negotiating temperature settings. No one else's preferences to consider. Just me, my choices, my space. It was terrifying. It was liberating. It was exactly what I needed. My first therapy session with Dr. Hannah Scott took place on a gray November morning. Her office was warm and comfortable, filled with plants and soft lighting that made it feel safe rather than clinical. She was a black woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an air of competent compassion. "Tell me what brings you here," she said after we had settled into our chairs. I gave her the summary: the affair, the confrontation, the divorce, the family betrayal. She listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes, her expression neutral but attentive. When I finished, she said, "That's a lot of trauma in a short period. How are you managing day to day?" "Fine. I'm working, taking care of myself, staying busy." Even as I said it, I knew how it sounded. I know that's probably not the healthiest approach. There's no healthy approach that looks the same for everyone. Some people need to stay busy. Some need to fall apart. Most need some combination. She leaned forward slightly. "What I'm hearing is that you're very focused on the practical aspects. The legal settlement, the house, your business. But I'm not hearing much about the emotional processing. How do you feel about what happened?" The question should have been simple, but I found myself struggling to answer. "I'm angry. Obviously. Betrayed. Humiliated that I didn't see it sooner. Anything else?" I thought about it. Relieved in a strange way. Like at least now I know the truth. I'm not second-guessing myself anymore. "What about grief? Are you grieving the loss of your marriage?" Was I? I had cried that first night at Monica's, but since then tears had been rare. "I don't think so. How can I grieve something that wasn't real? The marriage I thought I had never existed. Trevor was lying to me for months, maybe longer. So what am I supposed to grieve? The fantasy? Grief for the fantasy is still valid grief. You lost the life you thought you were building, the future you planned, the trust you had in people you loved. Those losses are real even if the relationship turned out to be based on deception. Her words hit harder than expected. I had been so focused on being strong, on proving I could handle this, that I had not allowed myself to acknowledge the depths of what I had lost. Not just a husband and a sister, but my sense of safety in the world. My belief that family meant something. My trust in my own judgment. I'm afraid if I start grieving, I won't be able to stop, I admitted quietly. That's a common fear. But grief isn't infinite. It comes in waves and each wave passes. Avoiding it doesn't make it go away, it just delays the process. We spent the rest of the session talking about coping strategies and ways to process emotions without being overwhelmed by them. By the time I left, I felt exhausted but slightly lighter, like acknowledging the grief had given me permission to feel it. The following week, my brother Cameron invited me to lunch. We met at a cafe downtown, the kind of place with good sandwiches and strong coffee. He gave me a long hug before we sat down. "How are you really doing?" he asked. "I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. The divorce is almost final, I got the house, my business is thriving. I'm in therapy. Things are looking up." Cameron studied me with the same assessing look he used to give when we were kids, and he could tell I was lying about finishing my homework. "And emotionally?" "Working on it. Dr. Scott is helping." I changed the subject. "How are mom and dad?" "Struggling. They feel guilty, like they should have seen what was happening. Dad's especially torn up about it. It's not their fault. Try telling him that. He keeps saying he should have known, should have picked up on the signs, should have protected you." Cameron sipped his coffee. "They want to see you more often. They're worried you're isolating yourself." "I'm not isolating. I'm just adjusting. Building a new normal." "Have you thought about what happens at Christmas?" "That's only a month away." The question made my stomach drop. Christmas had always been a huge family affair. My parents' house filled with relatives, traditional meals, gift exchanges, the whole production. Bianca had always been at the center of it, the baby sister everyone doted on. How would that work now? "I haven't thought that far ahead," I admitted. "Mom wants to host like usual, but she's afraid you won't come if Bianca is there. And she's afraid Bianca won't come if she knows you're there. She's been stressing about it for weeks. What do you think I should do?" Cameron considered the question. "Honestly, I think you should go and let Bianca deal with her own choices. This is your family too. She's the one who screwed up. She shouldn't get to drive you away from family gatherings. But if we're both there, it'll be awkward and tense. I don't want to ruin Christmas for everyone. Nadine, she ruined a lot more than Christmas. If there's tension, that's on her, not you. You have every right to be there." He was right, but the thought of seeing Bianca made me feel physically ill. I had successfully avoided her for 3 months. The idea of being in the same room, trying to be civil for our parents' sake, felt impossible. "I'll think about it," I said, knowing even as I spoke that I was probably going to decline. Some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. That evening my mother called. "Cameron told me he talked to you about Christmas." "Mom, I don't think I can." "Before you say no, please just listen. Your father and I have decided to do separate celebrations this year. Bianca will come on Christmas Eve. You'll come on Christmas Day. That way no one has to miss out, and there's no uncomfortable confrontation." The solution was practical but somehow made everything worse. My family split into shifts like we were divorced parents managing custody. "That seems like a lot of extra work for you." "It's worth it to have both my daughters in my life, even if it has to be separately." She paused. "I know you're angry with her. You have every right to be. But I'm not ready to completely cut her out, and I don't think that's fair to ask of us." "I'm not asking you to cut her out. I understand she's your daughter too. But you're hurt that we're still in contact with her at all." Was I? Maybe. Logically, I understood that my parents loved both their daughters. Emotionally, part of me wanted them to shun Bianca completely, to show her that actions have consequences. But I could not ask them to do that. It would not be fair. "I appreciate you trying to find a solution," I said finally. "Christmas Day works for me." "Thank you, honey. This means everything to your father and me." After we hung up, I sat with my complicated feelings. Relief that I would not have to see Bianca. Guilt that my mother was working so hard to accommodate everyone. Anger that Bianca got to continue having a relationship with our parents when she was the one who destroyed our family. Grief for the way things used to be, when Christmas was simple and joyful instead of a logistical nightmare. Dr. Scott and I spent 2 sessions unpacking my feelings about the family situation. She helped me see that I could not control my parents' choices, only my own reactions to them. She also pointed out that my boundaries were about protecting myself, not punishing others. You get to decide what level of contact feels safe and healthy for you, she said. If that means never speaking to Bianca again, that's valid. If that eventually changes, that's also valid. There's no timeline for healing and there's no requirement to forgive. Everyone keeps saying I need to forgive and move on. Who's everyone? I thought about it. Actually, nobody said that directly. I think I'm saying it to myself. Why do you think that is? Because anger is exhausting? Because holding on to resentment feels like letting them win? I struggled to articulate the thought. Because I don't want to be defined by what they did to me. You won't be defined by it unless you choose to be. But processing anger is different from holding on to resentment. Anger serves a purpose. It tells you that your boundaries were violated, that something wrong occurred. Don't rush past that to premature forgiveness just because you think you should. Her permission to feel angry was oddly liberating. For months I had been trying to move past the betrayal as quickly as possible, equating healing with forgetting. But maybe healing meant actually feeling everything fully before letting it go. November passed in a blur of work and therapy and deliberately building a life I wanted. My business continued growing. Apparently, my personal drama had not hurt my professional reputation. If anything, other women seemed to respect how I had handled things. I got referrals from people who admired my strength, who wanted an event planner who understood that life did not always go according to plan. I attended a networking event in early December and found myself in conversation with a woman named Angela who ran a nonprofit supporting domestic violence survivors. I love your work, I told her after she explained her organization's mission. The holistic approach to rebuilding after abuse makes so much sense. Thank you. We're actually looking to expand our services to include workshops on financial independence and professional development. You wouldn't be interested in volunteering some event planning expertise, would you? The question caught me off guard. Volunteering had not been on my radar, but something about the idea appealed to me. What kind of events are you thinking? We host quarterly fundraisers and occasional awareness campaigns. Nothing huge, but everything we do needs to maximize impact on a tight budget. Angela handed me her card. Think about it. We could really use someone with your skills. I promised to consider it and left the event thinking about how my experience might help others. Not everyone who survived betrayal had the resources I did, the financial independence, the professional network, the support system. What if I could use my story to help women who were struggling to rebuild? The idea stayed with me through December. On Christmas Day, I went to my parents' house as planned. Cameron was there with his wife and kids. My dad grilled steaks. My mom made her famous macaroni and cheese. Everyone pretended things were normal, though we all knew they were not. How's the business going? My father asked during dinner, clearly trying to keep conversation on safe topics. Really well. I actually got approached about volunteering with a domestic violence nonprofit. They need event planning help. That sounds perfect for you, my mother said. Using your skills to help others heal. I think that's wonderful. I haven't decided yet. It feels weird to position myself as someone who has wisdom about surviving betrayal when I'm still figuring it out myself. Cameron jumped in. That's exactly why you should do it. You understand what it's like. You're living proof that people can rebuild after having their world destroyed. Was I though? Most days I felt like I was barely holding things together, maintaining a facade of strength while processing endless complicated emotions in therapy. But maybe that was the point. Maybe helping others did not require having all the answers. Maybe it just required having been there. I'll reach out to Angela after the new year, I decided. The rest of Christmas passed peacefully. My nephews played with their new toys. We watched a movie. For a few hours it almost felt like old times. Almost. But as I drove home that evening, I thought about Bianca celebrating with our parents the night before. Had she asked about me? Had she expressed any remorse? Did our parents defend me or did they try to stay neutral, unwilling to take sides? I would probably never know. And maybe that was okay. My relationship with my parents could exist separately from their relationship with Bianca. We could love the same people without those people needing to mediate between us. Still, as I pulled into my driveway and looked at my beautifully renovated house, I felt the absence of the family I used to have. The easy relationships, the unconditional trust, the assumption that blood meant loyalty. All of that was gone, replaced by something more complicated and conditional. But maybe that was more honest. Maybe blind trust had been naive. Maybe this new configuration with clear boundaries and realistic expectations was actually healthier even if it hurt more. I was learning to live with the both grateful for my parents' love and hurt by their continued relationship with Bianca. Both proud of my strength and struggling with moments of weakness. Both healing and still wounded. Progress was not linear. Dr. Scott kept reminding me of that. Some days I felt powerful and independent. Other days I cried in the shower for no specific reason. All of it was valid. All of it was part of moving forward. As the year ended, I made myself a promise. In the new year, I would focus less on what I had lost and more on what I was building. My business. My volunteer work. My chosen family of friends who had proven their loyalty. My relationship with myself, learning to trust my instincts again. Trevor and Bianca had taken enough from me. They did not get to take my future too. January arrived with the same cold precision as the divorce decree becoming final. On the first business day of the new year, I received an official copy of the judgment. My marriage was legally dissolved. I was now officially Nadine Simmons, no longer hyphenated with Trevor's last name, no longer attached to anyone but myself. I framed the decree and hung it in my office, not out of bitterness but as a reminder of survival. Every client who walked through my door would see that life goes on, that endings can become beginnings. My first phone call of the year was to Angela at the domestic violence nonprofit. If the offer still stands, I'd like to volunteer with your organization. That's fantastic. Can you come by the office this week? I'll show you around and we can discuss what kind of involvement makes sense. The nonprofit's headquarters was a converted townhouse in a neighborhood that was transitioning from rough to revitalized. Inside, the space buzzed with purposeful activity. Caseworkers meeting with clients, support groups gathering in conference rooms, volunteers sorting donations. Angela gave me a tour, introducing me to staff and explaining their programs. We serve about 300 women annually. Most are escaping domestic violence, but we also work with women dealing with financial abuse, coercive control, and family betrayal situations like yours. The phrase, situations like yours, made me realize my story was not unique. I was one of many women rebuilding after someone they trusted destroyed their sense of safety. We have an event in March, Angela continued. A fundraising gala. Our usual planner just moved out of state and we're kind of scrambling. Would you be willing to take it on? I looked at the event details she showed me. 200 guests, corporate sponsors, silent auction, seated dinner. Exactly the kind of event I specialized in. I can do this. Consider it covered. Over the next 2 months, I poured myself into planning the gala. During the day I worked with my paying clients, building their weddings and corporate events. In the evenings, I developed the nonprofit's fundraiser with the same meticulous attention I gave to everything. But this project felt different. Every decision, from the empowering theme to the survivor testimonials, carried deeper meaning. This was not just about creating a beautiful event. This was about raising money to help women escape situations that could have destroyed them. I recruited vendors who donated services at cost or for free. I reached out to my professional network for silent auction items. I convinced a friend who was a professional photographer to document the evening pro bono. Every piece came together like a puzzle, each element serving the larger purpose. My business continued thriving too. Word had spread about how I handled my personal crisis, not by falling apart but by strategic planning and decisive action. Women especially wanted to work with me, sensing that I understood resilience. You're like the event planner who actually gets that life is messy, one client said during a consultation. You don't just plan perfect days. You help people create meaning even when things are complicated. The comment stayed with me. Maybe my professional value had shifted. Maybe surviving betrayal had given me a kind of credibility I would not have had otherwise. Not that I would have chosen this path, but at least I was making something useful from the wreckage. In late February, Dr. Scott and I had a breakthrough session. We had been working on my trust issues. Specifically, my fear that anyone I let close would eventually betray me. That's a normal trauma response, she said. Your brain is trying to protect you from future harm by assuming everyone is dangerous. But that's not a sustainable way to live. So how do I trust again? How do I open up to people when I know how badly it can go wrong? You don't trust blindly. You trust gradually with boundaries while paying attention to people's actions. Trust is something people earn over time, not something you give automatically. That sounds exhausting. It's actually less exhausting than constantly waiting for betrayal. Right now you're in hypervigilance mode, looking for signs of danger everywhere. That takes enormous mental energy. Learning to assess trustworthiness accurately is actually more efficient. She taught me about green flags and red flags in relationships. Not just romantic ones but friendships and professional connections too. Green flags included consistency between words and actions, respect for boundaries, accountability when making mistakes. Red flags included love bombing, isolation attempts, financial manipulation, boundary pushing. Trevor showed red flags that I ignored. I realized the secrecy about his phone, the defensiveness when I asked questions, the way he made me feel like I was being paranoid. And now you know what to watch for. That's growth, Nadine. Painful growth, but growth nonetheless. The gala was scheduled for the first Saturday in March. In the week leading up to it, I barely slept. Every detail had to be perfect, not for my ego but because these women deserved perfection. They deserved to feel celebrated, honored, supported. The day of the event, I arrived at the venue hours early. The theme was Phoenix Rising, women rebuilding from the ashes of their former lives. We decorated with rich purples and golds, symbolic of transformation and royalty. Each table centerpiece featured a small phoenix sculpture that guests could take home as a reminder of their own strength. Monica helped me with last-minute setup. This is going to be incredible. You've outdone yourself. I hope we raise enough money. These programs are life-changing for the women they serve. Trust me, people are going to write big checks tonight. The auction items alone are amazing. As guests began arriving, I felt a flutter of nerves. This was my first public event since the wedding disaster. Would people whisper about my personal drama? Would I be the topic of gossip instead of professional respect? But as the evening unfolded, something magical happened. Women approached me to share their own stories of betrayal and survival. They thanked me for being open about my experience. They said my strength had inspired them to leave toxic situations or set better boundaries. I was married to a man who cheated with my best friend, one woman told me during the cocktail hour. Seeing how you handled it gave me courage to handle my own divorce with dignity. So thank you. I had not expected this. I thought my story was just personal pain, but apparently it had become something more, a kind of roadmap for others navigating similar terrain. The program began with dinner and survivor testimonials. 3 women shared their journeys, escaping domestic violence, rebuilding after financial abuse, healing from family betrayal. Their courage was breathtaking. Each story was different, but the core theme remained the same. I survived, I rebuilt, I became stronger. Then Angela surprised me by calling me to the stage. I want to recognize someone who volunteered countless hours to make tonight possible, she said into the microphone. Nadine Simmons not only planned this incredible event, but she also represents what our organization stands for. 6 months ago, Nadine discovered her husband was having an affair with her sister. Instead of falling apart, she made strategic decisions to protect herself, pursued a divorce that recognized her worth, and has since been rebuilding her life with grace and determination. Nadine, please come up here. I walked to the stage feeling exposed and oddly proud at the same time. The room erupted in applause, not polite charity applause but genuine appreciation. Angela handed me the microphone. I had not prepared anything to say, but words came anyway. Thank you. I didn't plan tonight expecting recognition, but since I'm up here, I want to say something. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought betrayal had destroyed everything I cared about. And in some ways it did. My marriage ended. My relationship with my sister is gone. The family dynamics I grew up with are forever changed. I paused, collecting my thoughts while 200 people waited silently. But here's what I learned. Betrayal reveals who people really are. Both the people who hurt you and the people who show up to support you. In the middle of my crisis, I discovered which friends would drop everything to help me pack up my house. Which family members would stand with me even when it was complicated. Which professional connections valued my character over gossip. More importantly, I learned who I am when everything falls apart. I learned I'm stronger than I thought. I'm more resilient. I'm capable of strategic thinking even in the middle of emotional chaos. And I'm not defined by what someone else did to me. I'm defined by how I chose to respond. The room was silent now, everyone focused on my words. So to every woman here tonight, whether you're a donor, a survivor, a volunteer, or all of those things, you are not what happened to you. You are what you build from the rubble. You are the choices you make when everything seems impossible. You are the strength you didn't know you had until you needed it. The applause that followed brought tears to my eyes. I walked off the stage and was immediately surrounded by women wanting to hug me, share their stories, exchange contact information. The networking that followed felt different from typical professional connections. These were genuine relationships forming, based on shared experience and mutual understanding. The gala raised over $200,000, far exceeding Angela's projections. After expenses, That meant nearly $180,000 for programs serving women in crisis. Real money that would change real lives. As I cleaned up after the event ended, Angela found me breaking down table decorations. You know what you did tonight? You didn't just plan an event. You created a movement. At least a dozen women told me they want to volunteer because of your speech. I just told the truth. Exactly. And the truth is powerful. She helped me gather centerpieces. Have you thought about speaking more publicly about your experience? I know other organizations that would love to have you. I had not thought about it. Public speaking had never been my thing. I preferred working behind the scenes, creating experiences for others. But tonight had shown me something I had not expected. My story had value beyond my own healing. Could help others. Maybe, I said. Let me think about it. That night, driving home through empty streets, I felt something I had not experienced in months. Genuine pride in who I was becoming. Not pride in surviving, that was just necessity. Pride in choosing to use my experience to help others. Pride in building something meaningful from the wreckage. My phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Jerome, Bianca's ex-fiancé, who I had not heard from since the wedding disaster. Saw your speech tonight on Instagram. Really powerful. Hope you're doing well. I smiled and texted back, thank you. Hope you're doing well too. His response came immediately, actually yes. Turns out dodging that bullet was the best thing that could have happened. Found someone who actually deserves trust. That's wonderful. Happy for you. You'll find that too when you're ready. You deserve good things, Nadine. The light turned green and I drove on, but his words stayed with me. I would find good things. Maybe not romantic love. I was not ready to even think about dating yet. But good things came in many forms. Meaningful work, genuine friendships, purpose beyond myself. In April, I celebrated my business's 6th anniversary by hiring 2 full-time employees. Tanya and Jennifer had been asking to transition from part-time for months, and my client load finally justified it. We had a small celebration in the office, champagne, cake, and a toast to growth. You've built something really special here, Tanya said. Not just a business but a culture. You treat us with respect, pay us fairly, and actually care about our professional development. That's the only way I know how to operate. We're a team. It's rare though. A lot of event planners are cutthroat, competitive, willing to exploit their employees. You're different. Maybe surviving betrayal had taught me something about loyalty and respect. Maybe having experienced the worst of human behavior made me more committed to modeling the best. Or maybe I had always been this way and just now had the confidence to fully embrace it. My calendar filled with weddings, corporate events, and nonprofit fundraisers. Every client received the same meticulous attention, the same creative problem solving, the same commitment to excellence. My reputation grew beyond the local market. I started getting inquiries from couples planning destination events, corporations looking for high-level conference planning. I hired a business consultant to help me think strategically about growth. Could I expand to a second location? Should I specialize in certain types of events? What would sustainable scaling look like while maintaining quality? You're at an inflection point, the consultant said during our 3rd meeting. You can either stay boutique and highly selective, or you can grow into something larger with more systems and staff. Both are valid choices, but they require different strategies. I thought about it for weeks. Part of me wanted to stay small, maintaining total control over every detail. But another part recognized that growth could mean reaching more people, creating more jobs, having greater impact. Finally, I made the decision: controlled expansion. I would keep the personal touch that made my business special while creating systems that allowed me to delegate effectively. It was a both/and approach, staying true to my values while embracing new opportunities. In May, I spoke at a women's empowerment luncheon. Angela had connected me with the organizers, and despite my nerves, I agreed. The topic was rebuilding after betrayal, and I had 2 weeks to prepare remarks. Dr. Scott helped me work through my anxiety about being so public. What are you afraid of? That people will judge me. That they'll think I'm exploiting my trauma for attention. That I'll say something wrong and hurt someone who's still in the middle of their pain. Those are all understandable fears. Let me ask you this: what's your intention in speaking? To help people feel less alone. To show them that survival is possible. Then hold on to that intention. When you speak from genuine desire to help rather than ego, people respond to that authenticity. The luncheon audience was 150 women of all ages and backgrounds. I told my story, not all the details but the emotional arc. The shock of discovery. The strategic response. The legal victory that meant nothing compared to the emotional work of healing. The ongoing process of learning to trust again, to open up, to build a new life. Recovery is not a straight line, I told them. Some days I feel invincible. Other days I cry in my car before client meetings. Both are okay. Both are part of healing. The key is not to pretend. You're fine before you actually are. The key is to honor where you are in the process while still moving forward. The standing ovation surprised me. Women lined up afterward to talk, to cry, to share their own stories of betrayal and rebuilding. I exchanged contact information with dozens of people, creating a network of women supporting women through the hardest experiences of their lives. Driving home that afternoon, I realized something profound. My pain had purpose. Not that I was glad for the betrayal, I would still undo it if I could. But since I could not change what happened, at least I could extract meaning from it. At least I could help others not feel so alone. My business continued to grow. My volunteer work expanded to include regular support group facilitation at Angela's nonprofit. My therapy sessions shifted from crisis management to personal growth. I was not just surviving anymore. I was thriving. Trevor tried to contact me once in late May, leaving a voicemail that said, "I know you don't want to talk to me, but I want you to know I'm sorry. Really sorry. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was selfish and weak. You deserved better. I hope you found happiness." I listened to the message twice, waiting to feel something. Anger? Satisfaction? Grief? But all I felt was indifference. His apology, genuine or not, changed nothing. It did not undo the harm. It did not restore what was lost. It was simply words too little too late. I deleted the voicemail without responding. He did not deserve my energy, not even the energy of acknowledgement. At my next therapy session, I told Dr. Scott about it. "How do you feel about not feeling anything?" she asked. "Good, actually. A year ago, hearing from him would have destroyed me. Now it's just nothing. He's a stranger who used to be my husband. That's all. That's significant growth. You've processed the trauma enough that he no longer has power over your emotional state. Does that mean I've forgiven him? Forgiveness isn't required for healing. What you've achieved is something better. Indifference. He's not living rent-free in your head anymore. That's freedom." She was right. I had found freedom, not through forgiveness or revenge, but through building a life so full and meaningful that there was no room for bitterness. Trevor and Bianca had become footnotes in my story, not the main narrative. As summer approached, I celebrated 1 year since the wedding disaster. 1 year since my world imploded. 1 year since I made the choice to respond with strategy rather than despair. In that year I had completed my divorce and secured a favorable settlement. Expanded my business and hired full-time employees. Started volunteering with a domestic violence nonprofit. Become a public speaker on trauma recovery. Maintained boundaries with toxic family members. Built a support network of genuine, trustworthy friends. Invested in therapy and personal growth. Renovated my home to reflect only my taste and choices. Most importantly, I had learned to trust myself again. My instincts, my strength, my resilience. I had learned that I did not need anyone else to be whole, that I could build a beautiful life on my own terms. The woman who walked in on her husband and sister 1 year ago had been devastated, humiliated, broken. The woman I was now felt powerful, purposeful, and genuinely happy. Not every day was perfect. Some mornings I still woke up sad. Some nights I still felt lonely. But those moments were increasingly rare, overshadowed by genuine joy in the life I was building. I had risen from the ashes. And I was still rising, still growing, still becoming who I was always meant to be. June brought sweltering heat and an unexpected call from Jerome. His name appeared on my phone screen as I was reviewing vendor contracts in my office, and I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Jerome, this is a surprise." "Hey Nadine. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. I got your number from that networking event database." He sounded nervous. "I wanted to see if you'd be interested in grabbing coffee sometime. Not a date," he added quickly. "Just, I think we have some unique shared experience and it might be nice to talk with someone who gets it." I considered the offer. Jerome and I had both been betrayed by the same 2 people. We had both lost futures we had planned. But where I had been systematically gathering evidence, he had been blindsided at the altar. His pain was different from mine, though equally valid. "Coffee sounds good. When works for you." We met at a cafe near downtown on a Saturday morning. Jerome looked different than he had at the wedding, less polished, more relaxed. He had grown a beard and seemed to have lost weight, but his eyes looked clearer than they had that disastrous day. "Thanks for agreeing to this," he said as we sat with our drinks. I've wanted to reach out for months but wasn't sure if you'd want contact with anyone connected to all that. I appreciate you being direct. What made you decide to call? Honestly, therapy. My therapist suggested connecting with you might be helpful for both of us. People who haven't lived through this kind of betrayal don't really understand it. They try, but there's this gap. I knew exactly what he meant. Even Monica, as supportive as she had been, could not truly grasp what it felt like to have someone you loved actively deceive you while planning a future together. My therapist said something similar. How are you doing? Better than I was. The first few months were rough. I was humiliated, angry, confused. I kept replaying everything looking for signs I missed. He stirred his coffee absently. But about 3 months ago, I had this realization. She did me a favor. How so? I would have married her. We would have started a life together. Maybe had kids. And the whole time she would have been capable of this level of deception. Better to find out before the wedding than after, you know? His perspective mirrored my own journey. I thought the same thing about Trevor. Better to know who he really was before wasting more years on him. Exactly. Jerome leaned forward. And honestly, I've been using the experience to build something better. I started a podcast about healing after betrayal. It's small, only about 200 listeners, but people really connect with the content. That's incredible. What made you want to do that? Same reason you started public speaking, I'd guess. The experience sucked, but at least it can help others. I interview people who've been through different types of betrayal and rebuilt their lives. Actually, he pulled out his phone. Would you be interested in being a guest? Your story is powerful. The request surprised me. Public speaking at luncheons was one thing, but recording my experience for a podcast felt more permanent, more exposed. Can I think about it? Of course. No pressure. He put his phone away. I also wanted to ask if you'd heard anything about them. Trevor and Bianca. I had deliberately avoided seeking information about them, but fragments reached me anyway through mutual connections. Trevor lost his job about 3 months after the divorce. Something about performance issues, but I suspect the scandal played a role. Last I heard, he moved to another city. Bianca apparently tried to reconnect with our parents multiple times, but they're maintaining boundaries. She's been posting on social media about starting over, but I blocked her so I only know what Cameron tells me. They're both on their own now, Jerome said. No relationship, no support system. Bianca tried to reach out to me a few weeks ago. What did she say? That she was sorry. That she made terrible mistakes. That she hoped I could forgive her someday. He laughed without humor. I told her forgiveness wasn't mine to give because I didn't have anything she needed. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. How did she respond? Didn't. She blocked me after that, which is fine. I wasn't looking for ongoing dialogue. He met my eyes. Does it make me a bad person that I don't feel sympathy for either of them? I don't think so. They created their own consequences. We're not obligated to feel sorry for people who deliberately hurt us. We talked for 2 hours, comparing notes on recovery strategies. Jerome had moved to a new apartment, changed his workout routine, and started dating again. Nothing serious yet, just getting comfortable putting himself out there. He had reconnected with old friends, traveled to places he had always wanted to visit, and focused on career advancement. The weird thing is, I'm happier now than I was before the wedding, he admitted. My life with Bianca was, I don't know how to describe it. Surface level happiness but no depth. I was so focused on checking boxes, engagement, wedding, house, kids, that I never asked if I genuinely loved her or if I just loved the idea of building a life. And now I know the difference. I know what real connection feels like versus just going through expected motions. He smiled. It took getting humiliated in front of 200 people to figure that out, but at least I figured it out. As we prepared to leave, Jerome said, would it be weird if we stayed in touch? Not as anything romantic, he clarified again. Just as friends who understand each other's experience. That would be nice, actually. I could use more people in my life who get it. We exchanged phone numbers and hugged goodbye. Walking back to my car, I felt lighter. Jerome was right. There was value in connecting with someone who truly understood the unique pain of family betrayal combined with romantic deception. We had been through different versions of the same nightmare, and neither of us had to explain or justify our feelings. Over the following weeks, Jerome and I met for coffee regularly. Our friendship was easy, uncomplicated by romantic tension or expectations. We could be brutally honest about our healing journeys, celebrating victories and acknowledging setbacks without judgment. I had a moment this week where I actually felt grateful for what happened. Jerome told me during one of our coffee dates. Not grateful for the betrayal itself, but grateful for who I became because of it. Does that make sense? Completely. I felt the same way after the nonprofit gala. Like the experience gave me purpose I wouldn't have had otherwise. It's a weird silver lining, but I'll take it. In July, I finally agreed to be a guest on Jerome's podcast. We recorded in his home studio, a converted spare bedroom with surprisingly professional equipment. He asked thoughtful questions about my experience, my recovery journey, and what advice I would give others going through similar betrayals. One thing I've learned is that closure is overrated, I said into the microphone. People kept telling me I needed closure, that I needed to confront them one final time or get answers to all my questions. But closure is something you give yourself, not something someone else can provide. I found peace when I stopped waiting for them to validate my feelings and just accepted that I would never fully understand their choices. That's profound, Jerome said. What would you say to someone who's in the immediate aftermath of discovering betrayal? Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let people convince you that you're paranoid or overreacting. Gather evidence if you need it, secure your finances, and protect yourself legally before confronting anyone. And most importantly, know that what happened is not a reflection of your worth. Their choices say everything about them and nothing about you. The podcast episode went live a week later, and the response was overwhelming. Jerome's listenership jumped from 200 to over 3,000 in 24 hours. My inbox filled with messages from strangers thanking me for my honesty, sharing their own stories, asking for advice. I had not expected this level of response. My story had become something bigger than just personal experience. It had become part of a collective narrative about surviving betrayal and choosing strength. Monica noticed the change in me when we met for dinner in early August. You're different lately. More relaxed. Almost happy. I think I might actually be happy, I admitted. For real, not just pretending. What changed? I stopped waiting for my life to go back to normal and accepted that this is my normal now. The business I built, the volunteer work, the speaking, the friendships with people like Jerome who understand, this is my life. And it's actually a good life. You've earned it. After everything you went through, you deserve peace and happiness. But peace was still complicated by family dynamics. My parents had maintained their separate holiday arrangement, and I had not seen or spoken to Bianca in over a year. Part of me wondered if I would ever forgive her. Part of me did not care about forgiveness, only about protection. In therapy, Dr. Scott and I explored my feelings about my sister. Do you miss her? She asked. I miss who I thought she was. I don't miss the person who could do what she did. Those might be the same person, Nadine. People are complicated. They can genuinely love us while also being capable of tremendous harm. So what am I supposed to do with that? Whatever feels right for you. Forgiveness is optional. Reconciliation is optional. What's required is processing the grief and anger so they don't control your future. I appreciated that Dr. Scott never pushed me toward forgiveness. So many people seem to think forgiveness was necessary for healing, but she understood that sometimes the healthiest choice was simply to move on without reconciliation. My business continued growing throughout the summer. I planned 3 weddings in August alone, each one beautiful and unique. Seeing couples start their marriages with genuine love and trust made me believe in relationships again, even if I was not ready for one myself. Have you thought about dating? Tanya asked one afternoon while we reviewed upcoming contracts. Not really. I'm not opposed to it eventually, but I'm content focusing on other things right now. Fair enough. Just wanted to make sure you're not closing yourself off permanently because of what Trevor did. She had a point. I did not want to let Trevor's betrayal steal my ability to trust romantic partners. But I also did not want to force connection before I was ready just to prove I was over it. I think I'm in a season of building myself rather than building a relationship, I said. When the right person comes along, I'll be ready. Until then, I'm happy being single. And I genuinely was. My days were full of meaningful work, genuine friendships, and personal growth. I did not wake up thinking about Trevor or Bianca anymore. I woke up thinking about client meetings, volunteer commitments, speaking engagements, and weekend plans with friends. Cameron noticed the shift too. You seem lighter, he said during a family dinner at our parents' house. Like you're not carrying all that weight anymore. I think I finally processed most of it. It still hurts sometimes, but it doesn't define me anymore. I'm proud of you. The way you handled everything, staying strategic, protecting yourself, rebuilding your life. It's impressive. I didn't have much choice. I could fall apart or move forward. Moving forward seemed more productive. Still, not everyone would have had the strength to do what you did. His validation meant more than he probably realized. Cameron had been my protector since childhood, always looking out for me. Having his respect and pride felt like completing a circle. As fall approached, I reflected on the year and a half since the wedding disaster. I had transformed from a woman whose identity was partially defined by her marriage into someone who stood completely on her own. I had built a thriving business, a network of genuine relationships, and a sense of purpose that extended beyond just making money. Trevor and Bianca had wanted to have their cake and eat it too, maintain respectable public lives while indulging secret desires. Instead, they had both lost everything: their reputations, their relationships, their comfortable lives. Meanwhile, I had gained everything that truly mattered: self-respect, meaningful work, authentic connections. The universe had a funny way of balancing scales. Not through my intervention but through natural consequences. Their own choices had led to their own destruction. I had not needed to pursue revenge because life had delivered justice on its own. At my next therapy session, Dr. Scott asked, "If you could go back and change things, prevent the affair from happening, would you?" I thought about it carefully. A year ago, I would have said yes in a heartbeat. Now, I honestly don't know. If the affair hadn't happened, I'd still be married to someone who was capable of that level of deception. I'd still have a sister I couldn't trust. I'd still be living a life that looked good on the surface but was rotten underneath. So maybe the betrayal was a gift in disguise. That's a profound shift in perspective. It doesn't mean I'm glad it happened. It means I've accepted that it did happen and chosen to find meaning in it. As September arrived, I received an invitation to speak at a national conference on family dynamics and betrayal. The organizers had heard my podcast episode with Jerome and wanted me to present to an audience of therapists, social workers, and survivors. This was bigger than anything I had done before. A national platform, hundreds of attendees, professional credentials I was being asked to share alongside licensed therapists with advanced degrees. "I'm an event planner, not a psychologist," I told Angela when I called her for advice. "What could I possibly offer this audience?" "Your lived experience. These therapists study betrayal academically. You survived it personally. Both perspectives are valuable." She convinced me to accept. In October, I flew to Chicago for the conference and delivered a keynote speech to 600 people. The room was silent as I told my story, explained my strategic response, and outlined what actually helped during recovery versus what well-meaning people said that made things worse. "Don't tell survivors, everything happens for a reason," I said from the stage. "Betrayal doesn't happen for a reason except that someone chose to betray you. Don't tell them, at least you found out now, because that minimizes their pain. Don't tell them they need to forgive to heal, because healing can happen with or without forgiveness. Instead, tell them, I'm here for you. What do you need? Your feelings are valid. This isn't your fault. You'll get through this." Those simple statements make all the difference. The standing ovation that followed felt surreal. Professionals who had studied trauma for decades were applauding my amateur insights. But maybe that was the point. Sometimes the people who live through experiences have wisdom that can't be learned from textbooks. After my speech, dozens of therapists approached me asking for resources, wanting to know how to better support their clients going through family betrayal. I exchanged contact information with researchers studying infidelity, support group facilitators, and authors writing books about recovery. Flying home that evening, I realized I had somehow become an accidental expert on surviving betrayal. Not because I sought out that role, but because I refused to let my pain be wasted. Every speech, every podcast appearance, every conversation with a survivor, all of it transformed my personal tragedy into collective healing. The woman who had walked in on her husband and sister 18 months ago would never have imagined this life. But the woman I had become could not imagine anything else. 2 years after the wedding disaster, I stood in the second office of Nadine Simmons Events, watching movers arrange furniture. The expansion I had planned for so long was finally happening. This new space would house my growing team and allow us to take on larger, more complex projects without compromising quality. Tanya walked in carrying a box of supplies. "This place is gorgeous. You've come so far." "We've come so far," I corrected. "This business wouldn't be what it is without you and Jennifer." "Still, 2 years ago you were dealing with the worst betrayal imaginable. Now look at you, expanding your business, speaking nationally, helping hundreds of women rebuild their lives. It's incredible." Was it incredible? From the outside, maybe. From the inside, it felt more like survival combined with stubborn determination to not let Trevor and Bianca's choices define my future. But Tanya was right, that transformation had occurred. The evidence was all around me: thriving business, meaningful work, genuine happiness. My phone rang, Angela from the nonprofit. "Hey, do you have a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" "I have a proposal for you. We're launching a new program specifically focused on family betrayal recovery. We want you to lead it. It would involve facilitating support groups, developing curriculum, and training other facilitators. Paid position, not volunteer work anymore." The offer took me by surprise. That's a significant time commitment. I'd have to cut back on client work. Think about it. You're having more impact through this work than through event planning. Not that event planning isn't valuable, but you've found your calling in helping survivors. We can make it worth your while financially. After we hung up, I sat with the decision. Event planning had been my identity for years. It was safe, familiar, profitable. But Angela was right. My support group work and speaking engagements brought me fulfillment that client events never had. Was I ready to pivot my career entirely? I discussed it with Dr. Scott in our next session. We had moved from weekly to bi-weekly sessions months ago, a sign of how much I had healed. "What's stopping you from accepting?" she asked. "Fear, I think. Event planning is what I know. It's how I built this life. Shifting to trauma recovery work feels risky. Or it feels aligned with who you've become. You're not the same woman who started this business 6 years ago. Your priorities have evolved." She was right. I was not the same woman. That woman had been focused on building a business, proving herself professionally, creating picture-perfect events. The woman I was now cared more about authentic impact than surface-level beauty. I called Angela back the next day. "I'm in. Let's figure out the details." Over the following months, I gradually transitioned away from full client services to focus primarily on trauma recovery work. I kept a few select event planning clients, mostly nonprofits and women-owned businesses, but my main energy went into building the family betrayal recovery program. The support groups I facilitated met twice a week. Each session brought 8 to 12 women dealing with various types of family betrayal: infidelity with relatives, financial fraud by siblings, emotional abuse from parents. Their stories varied, but the core pain was the same. People they should have been able to trust had violated that trust in fundamental ways. "My brother stole my identity and destroyed my credit," one woman shared during a session. "My parents knew and covered for him because they didn't want him to go to jail. Now I can't get approved for anything, and my family acts like I'm the problem for being angry. My husband and my mother had an affair," another woman said, her voice breaking. "They're together now. My dad divorced my mom, and I'm supposed to be okay with it because people can't help who they love. I lost my marriage and my mother in one discovery." Every story made me grateful for my own support system while reinforcing why this work mattered. These women needed to know they were not alone, not crazy, not overreacting. They needed validation that their pain was legitimate and their anger justified. I developed curriculum based on my own recovery journey combined with evidence-based trauma treatment. We covered topics like recognizing red flags and trusting intuition, setting boundaries with toxic family members, processing grief and anger without being consumed by them, rebuilding trust strategically and carefully, finding purpose and meaning after betrayal, creating chosen family when blood family fails. The program grew rapidly. Within 6 months, we had expanded to 4 weekly groups serving over 40 women. I trained 3 additional facilitators to handle the growing demand. The nonprofit's waiting list stretched 3 months long. I continued speaking at conferences and on podcasts, sharing my story and the frameworks that helped me heal. Each time I spoke, I refined my message, incorporating new insights from the women I worked with. At a conference in Boston, a woman approached me after my speech. "I've been following your journey for over a year. You gave me hope when I thought my life was over. My husband had an affair with my cousin. Your story showed me that I could survive this." These conversations happen constantly now. Women recognized me in coffee shops, airports, grocery stores. My story had spread through social media, podcasts, articles. I had accidentally become a minor public figure in the trauma recovery space. Sometimes the attention felt overwhelming. I valued privacy, but sharing my experience publicly meant sacrificing some of that. Most days I thought the trade-off was worth it. If my vulnerability helped others feel less alone, then losing privacy was acceptable. My relationship with my parents had stabilized into something functional, if not quite what it used to be. We saw each other regularly, celebrated holidays together, maintained surface-level harmony. But the easy closeness was gone, replaced by careful navigation of topics we could discuss without bringing up Bianca. My mother tried to bridge the gap occasionally. Don't you think enough time has passed? Wouldn't it be healing to try talking to your sister? Healing for whom? I asked gently but firmly. I've done the work to heal. I've processed the betrayal. I don't need reconciliation with her to be whole. But she's your sister. Family should forgive. Family should also not sleep with their sister's husband. She violated the relationship beyond repair. That's her consequence to live with, not my responsibility to fix. My mother dropped it, but I knew she struggled with having two daughters who would not be in the same room. I understood her pain, but I also refused to sacrifice my boundaries to make her more comfortable. That was part of my growth, recognizing that other people's discomfort with my decisions was not my problem to solve. Cameron remained my strongest family ally. He had completely cut contact with Bianca after learning more details about how calculated the affair had been. She texted me asking for money last month, he told me during a lunch meeting. Said she was struggling financially and needed help. I told her she should have thought about consequences before destroying her relationships. How did she respond? Accused me of being heartless, said family should help family, tried to guilt me about abandoning her. He shook his head. I blocked her number. I'm done with people who only remember family obligations when they need something. In December, 2 years after my Christmas split-shift arrangement, my mother finally asked what she had been avoiding. What should we do for Christmas this year? Whatever feels right for you and Dad. I'll come whichever day works for your schedule. I had stopped trying to control how my parents managed their relationship with Bianca. They were adults making their own choices. Would you be willing to come if Bianca was there? Not to talk to her necessarily, just to be in the same space. I considered it carefully. No. I'm not ready for that, and I might never be ready. That's not to hurt you or punish her. It's to protect myself. Being around her would undo 2 years of healing work. I understand. We'll do separate days again. She sounded resigned but not angry. Thank you for respecting my boundaries. I know it's hard for you. You're my daughter. Your well-being matters more than my preference for everyone to get along. Her words meant everything. She was not choosing sides, but she was acknowledging that my healing took priority over her desire for family harmony. Jerome and I had maintained our friendship through regular coffee meetups and occasional collaboration. His podcast had grown significantly, and he had been approached about writing a book on betrayal recovery. We bounced ideas off each other, two people who had survived similar traumas and were now using that experience to help others. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had gotten together? He asked one afternoon, half joking. Absolutely not, I said firmly but kindly. We're both too smart to build a relationship on shared trauma. That's not a foundation, it's a trap. He laughed. You're right. We make much better friends than we would as a couple. Besides, I've been seeing someone who's actually good for me. Tell me everything. He lit up describing Nicole, a woman he had met through mutual friends who had her own career, her own interests, and no connection to our past drama. They had been dating for 4 months and it was going well. Slow, healthy, building genuine connection. I'm happy for you, I said and meant it. Jerome deserved someone who chose him completely, without reservation or deception. What about you? Any dating prospects? Not actively looking, but I'm open to possibility if the right person comes along. I'm genuinely content being single though. My life is full without romance. And it was true. I was not lonely or incomplete. My days were filled with meaningful work, genuine friendships, personal growth. Romance might be nice someday, but it was not necessary for my happiness. In late December, I received an unexpected email from Trevor. The subject line read, "No response needed, just needed to say this." I hesitated before opening it, then decided I was strong enough to handle whatever he had written. Nadine, I know you blocked my number and probably don't want to hear from me. I respect that. But I've been in intensive therapy for almost 2 years now, and my therapist encouraged me to write this even if you never respond. I was wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. Not just about cheating but about how I handled everything. I was selfish, cowardly, and cruel. I took your kindness for granted. I used your love as a safety net while I pursued someone else. I stole from you financially and emotionally. There's no excuse. I can explain the emotional factors that led to my choices, but explaining is not the same as excusing. I made active decisions to betray you, day after day, and those decisions destroyed everything good in my life. You were right to expose me publicly. You were right to pursue an aggressive divorce. You were right to cut me out completely. I deserved all of that and more. I've lost my career, my reputation, most of my friendships. I moved to another city to start over, but my past follows me. People Google my name and find articles about the wedding scandal. Professional connections dry up when they learn the truth. I'm not writing this to seek sympathy. I earned these consequences. I'm writing because you deserve to know that I understand what I did. I understand that I didn't just end a marriage. I traumatized someone who loved me. I violated trust in the deepest possible way. I stole years of your life that you spent building something with someone who was lying to you. I see now that I was never worthy of you. You deserved a partner who was honest, faithful, and valued what you were building together. I was none of those things. I hope you found happiness. Based on what I've seen of your public speaking and professional success, it seems like you have. You always were stronger and more resilient than I gave you credit for. I'm truly sorry. That's inadequate, but it's true. You'll never hear from me again. I just needed you to know that I take full responsibility for destroying what we had. Trevor. I read the email twice, waiting for emotion. Anger? Satisfaction? Relief? But all I felt was mild sadness for him. Not because I wanted to help him or felt sorry for his situation, but because it was genuinely sad that someone could make such destructive choices and have to live with them forever. I did not respond to the email. Trevor was right that it was inadequate, and he was also right that I would never hear from him again. His apology, sincere as it might be, changed nothing about my life or healing. It was too little, too late, and ultimately irrelevant. I mentioned it to Dr. Scott in our next session, which would be our last. After 2 years of therapy, we both agreed I had done the work and was ready to move forward without weekly support. How do you feel about the apology? She asked. Indifferent mostly. It's nice that he's taking accountability, but it doesn't undo the harm. It's his work to do, not mine to receive and validate. That's healthy perspective. You're not responsible for absolving him or making him feel better about his choices. It's strange though. 2 years ago, I think I would have wanted that apology desperately. I would have needed him to admit what he did to validate my pain. Now it just feels unnecessary. Because you validated your own pain. You did your healing work without needing his acknowledgement. That's powerful, Nadine. Our final session felt bittersweet. Dr. Scott had been my guide through the darkest period of my life, helping me process trauma and rebuild my sense of self. But she was right that I did not need weekly therapy anymore. You know where I am if you need a tune-up session, she said as we hugged goodbye. But I think you're going to be just fine. As the new year approached, I reflected on how much had changed in 2 years. The shattered woman who had walked in on her husband and sister was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, more purposeful. I had built a life I genuinely loved, not despite the betrayal but incorporating the lessons it taught me. My business had evolved from event planning to trauma recovery work. My relationships were now based on genuine connection rather than obligation or convenience. My sense of self was no longer tied to being someone's wife or sister. I was simply Nadine, event planner turned trauma recovery specialist, public speaker, friend, mentor, survivor. On New Year's Eve, I attended a party hosted by Angela and the nonprofit staff. The room was filled with women I had worked with over the past 2 years. Survivors, facilitators, volunteers, donors. This was my chosen family, people who had earned my trust through consistent support and genuine care. Jerome was there too with Nicole. Watching them together, clearly happy and healthy, reinforced my belief that good things come after surviving bad things. Not because the bad things needed to happen, but because surviving them often reveals strength and clarity we did not know we possessed. At midnight, as everyone cheered and hugged, I felt genuinely grateful. Not for the betrayal itself, but for who I had become in response to it. The woman I was now would not have been possible without going through that fire. I had been tested in ways I never imagined and had emerged transformed. 3 months into the new year, I received news through Cameron that Bianca had moved across the country. She had apparently given up trying to reconcile with our parents after they maintained firm boundaries. She was working some administrative job and living alone. Do you feel anything about that? Cameron asked when he told me. I thought about it. I hope she's okay. I don't wish her harm. But I also don't feel responsible for her well-being or interested in reconnecting. She made choices that destroyed our relationship. Those consequences are hers to carry. That's remarkably mature of you. It's not maturity. It's acceptance. She's not my sister anymore in any meaningful sense. She's just someone I used to know who hurt me badly. I've processed that and moved on. And I had. Bianca existed somewhere in the world, living her own life, but she was no longer part of mine. That distance was not punishment, it was protection. I had learned that not all relationships needed to be preserved, especially when preserving them required sacrificing my own peace. In April, I was invited to give a TED Talk. The topic, Healing After Betrayal, Choosing Strength Over Bitterness. Standing on the red circle, facing a live audience and cameras that would broadcast to millions, I told my story one more time. 2.5 years ago, I walked in on my husband with my sister on what was supposed to be her wedding day. In that moment, I had a choice, fall apart or fight back. I chose to fight back, not with violence or revenge, but with strategy. I documented everything, protected myself legally, and exposed the truth publicly. But here's what I learned: revenge doesn't heal you. Justice doesn't heal you. Even seeing your betrayers face consequences doesn't heal you. What heals you is the choice to build something meaningful from the wreckage. What heals you is choosing growth over bitterness, purpose over victimhood, strength over despair. I'm not grateful for the betrayal. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. But I am grateful for who I became in response to it. I'm grateful for the women I've been able to help, the support groups I've facilitated, the conversations I've had with survivors who felt alone until they heard my story. Betrayal reveals who people really are, both the people who hurt you and the people who show up for you. It also reveals who you are when everything falls apart. You're not defined by what someone else did to you. You're defined by what you build from the ashes. The standing ovation that followed felt surreal. This was the largest audience I had spoken to, thousands in person, millions who would eventually watch online. My story, once a private shame, had become a public testimony to resilience. After the TED Talk aired, my life changed again. Media requests flooded in. Publishers approached me about writing a book. Corporate trainers wanted me to speak to their teams about resilience and boundaries. The opportunities were overwhelming but exciting. I hired an assistant to manage my schedule and started seriously considering the book offer. What would I want to say to someone in the immediate aftermath of discovering betrayal? What wisdom could I share about the long road of recovery? Working with a literary agent, I spent 6 months crafting a book proposal, Rising from Ashes, a guide to rebuilding after family betrayal. The publisher who eventually acquired it believed it could help thousands of readers who were struggling through similar experiences. Writing the book was cathartic and challenging. I had to revisit memories I had worked hard to process, while also extracting universal lessons that would apply to others. Some days the writing flowed easily. Other days I cried at my keyboard, reliving the pain even though I had healed from it. But I pushed through because I knew the book would reach people who needed it. People who were lying in bed wondering if they would ever feel whole again. People who blamed themselves for missing red flags. People who questioned whether they deserved what happened to them. To all of them I wanted to say, you will survive this. You will rebuild. You will find meaning and purpose and joy again. The path forward is not easy, but it exists. And you are stronger than you think. 3 years after the wedding disaster, I stood in my office looking at the wall of awards and recognition I had accumulated: Woman of the Year from the local business association, Community Hero from the domestic violence nonprofit, Outstanding Speaker from multiple conferences. Photos of me with groups of survivors, all of us smiling genuinely because we had found hope after darkness. My phone rang, my mother calling. Hi Mom. Hi honey. Your father and I just watched your TED Talk for the 3rd time. We're so proud of you. Thanks. It's getting a good response. You've built such an incredible life. After everything that happened, you didn't just survive, you thrived. We want you to know how much we admire your strength. Her words meant more than she probably knew. My parents' pride validated that I had made the right choices, even when those choices were painful for everyone involved. I love you, I told her. Thanks for always respecting my boundaries even when it was hard. That's what parents should do. We're always here for you, whatever you need. After we hung up, I turned back to my computer where I was finalizing details for next month's conference keynote. My calendar was booked solid for the next 6 months. Speaking engagements, support group facilitations, book writing deadlines, business development meetings. It was a good life. A full life. A meaningful life. Not the life I had planned when I was married to Trevor, planning my sister's wedding, thinking my future was secure and predictable. This life was better because it was authentically mine, built on foundation of genuine relationships, meaningful work and hard-won wisdom. The woman who had stood at the top of those stairs 2.5 years ago, exposing her husband's betrayal to 200 shocked guests, would be amazed at who she became. That woman had been operating on instinct and adrenaline, just trying to survive the immediate crisis. This woman, the one I was now, had done more than survive. I had transformed pain into purpose, betrayal into service, and victimhood into victory. Not victory over Trevor and Bianca, because their outcomes were irrelevant to my happiness. Victory over the circumstances that could have destroyed me but instead became the catalyst for becoming my best self. Jerome texted that afternoon, "Just listen to your TED Talk again. You're changing lives. Never forget that." I smiled and responded, "We both are. Thanks for being part of this journey. Always. Coffee next week?" "Absolutely." I looked around my office one more time, the awards, the photos, the evidence of a life rebuilt from ashes, and felt complete. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had finally accepted that perfection was not the goal. Authenticity was. Purpose was. Growth was. Trevor and Bianca had destroyed the life I thought I wanted. In doing so, they had freed me to build the life I actually needed. One where I helped others heal, where my relationships were chosen rather than obligated, where my strength came from knowing I could survive anything. The betrayal had been devastating. The recovery had been brutal. But the transformation? The transformation was beautiful. As I locked up the office and headed home to my renovated house, the one that held only my history now, only my choices, only my future, I realized something profound. I was genuinely happy. Not happiness despite what happened, but happiness because of what I built afterward. I had risen from the ashes. And I was still rising, still growing, still becoming. This was my story. My life. My victory. And it was only the beginning.